Hi, my name is Emily Hill, and I am a dual degree master's PhD student at Ohio State, studying to be a registered dietitian. So I'm going to switch gears on you a little bit here and talk a little bit about modifiable lifestyle behaviors. And in particular, I'll talk about my project and what I have been working on the past couple of years. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about what our team has been doing. And then, of course, I'll discuss my project and where we hope to go moving forward. So my project is titled Growing Hope, and we're looking at lifestyle behaviors and helping cancer survivors to better adhere to evidence-based guidelines for cancer prevention and survivorship. And our study really started with the establishment of the Garden of Hope, which is an urban cancer survivors garden located here in central Ohio at Ohio State. And this garden came to fruition because of collaboration between a lot of different people on campus at Ohio State. So we have the luxury of being at a land-grant university, and we therefore have a lot of people who are willing to collaborate across disciplines and throughout different colleges on campus to really bring something like this to Ohio, to central Ohio. And the Garden of Hope is a cancer survivors garden where survivors can come harvest fresh produce throughout the growing season here in Ohio. So they are able to come weekly and get free, fresh produce, which has been a really great benefit to our cancer survivor population here. Additionally, the garden has become kind of a living laboratory for researchers and students who are interested in how dietary patterns affect cancer survivors and how their health may be impacted by the opportunities available at the garden. So after the initiation of the garden in 2012, our first goal was to kind of see what our participants were thinking about the garden and what feedback they had for us. So in 2013, we conducted focus groups with participants who were harvesting at the garden to really get some feedback on what they thought. And some of the emerging themes we had were that the participants felt that they were getting a greater intake of produce. So they were consuming more fruits and vegetables because they had access to be able to get these fruits and vegetables. And kind of alongside that, they felt that their physical health was improving because they not only were eating healthier, but perhaps because they were also getting outside and available to harvest. And similarly, they also had improved mental health, so they felt a really good, strong sense of support and community at the garden. So kind of to tell you a little bit more about why we started our intervention, and I'd like to point out here that we have evidence-based guidelines for cancer prevention and survivorship, and they've been established by the American Institute for Cancer Research, and they're very broad. So they're simple, such as following a plant-based diet, trying to avoid some more unhealthy food patterns, increasing the amount of physical activity that you do. And you can see from this graph that people in the United States are not doing a very good job at meeting these recommendations. And cancer survivors are at an increased risk when they're not following these recommendations, and research shows that following them can help increase physical health and quality of life. So, because we have the garden and we have this wonderful setting, we thought, why don't we create an intervention to help our survivors better adhere to the guidelines that we know can help them lead healthier lives? So, our very first year in 2014, we did a feasibility and acceptability pilot, which we titled Harvesting Health. And this lasted 4 months, and our intervention was conducted at the garden, so our participants had access to 4 different components. The first being harvesting at the garden itself, where they could get weekly produce. The second component is that we offered educational classes where participants could learn about the recommendations we were asking them to follow. We also had cooking demonstrations to teach them how to use the produce they were getting from the garden. The third component is we had a health coach who conducted e-motivational interviewing to help our participants set goals and make lifestyle changes. And the fourth component is novel technology. So we had an online website where participants could log in to get access to recipes and external resources. So good news, they loved it. We did have a very feasible program, and it was acceptable to our participants. So moving forward to last year, and really what I've been focusing my work on, is the efficacy of our program. So we have this intervention that we know people enjoy and people are getting something out of. So we want to know if we're having an impact on their behaviors and on their health. And we looked at a lot of different outcomes. I'll focus primarily on diet because that is what interests me the most as a future dietitian. To assess our participants, this past year, we had a 6-month intervention, and we looked at our participants before they began the intervention at baseline, and again after completion of the program. And we assessed diet by giving them food frequency questionnaires, where they would assess their usual dietary intakes over the past 30 days. We also drew blood and looked at carotenoids and fatty acids and a lot of other great things that I will not mention. So you might wonder why I'm focusing on carotenoids. And carotenoids, in short, are phytochemicals that are produced by plants, and they serve 2 purposes. One, they give plants their pigment, so they're often found, carotenoids in particular, are found in your orange, yellow, and red vegetables like carrots, pumpkins, tomatoes, things like that. And phytochemicals also give plants some protective benefits. So when we eat them, we also get some of those protective benefits as well. And carotenoids are of particular importance because they have antioxidant properties. So they help our cells fight off free radicals, or cells that damage our cells in the body and can lead to cancer and other issues. So consuming carotenoids in the diet can be part of a really cancer-fighting dietary pattern. Research has shown, however, that consuming carotenoids in their whole food form is much better than supplementation by isolating carotenoids and taking them in pill form. And in fact, that may be detrimental to health. So we advocate a whole foods, plant-based approach to getting these carotenoids in our diet. So now we know carotenoids are an important indicator of a cancer-fighting diet. And in order for me to understand whether or not our cancer survivors were improving their carotenoid status, I first wanted to know, are they eating more produce? And so these 2 graphs here show how well they were doing. The first graph on your left shows the healthy eating index scores. And a healthy eating index measures how well participants are adhering to the dietary guidelines for Americans. And as you can see in the first graph, with the light green being how our participants were doing on average before our intervention, and the dark green how they were doing after the intervention, we did have a significant increase in scores for both total fruit and total vegetable intake in terms of how well they were adhering to the guidelines. In the second graph, we actually looked at how much produce they were consuming. And again, from pre to post, we had a significant increase in servings of fruits and vegetables per day. Fruits, they increased by about half a serving per day, and vegetables by over 1 full serving. So we also wanted to see, okay, they're eating more vegetables and they're eating more fruits, so how are they getting more carotenoids in their diet? And the dietary food frequency data also was able to tell me that yes, they are getting more milligrams of the various carotenoids per day. And so we had 5 different carotenoids, and you can see in 4 of the 5 we had a significant increase. However, the pie charts on the right here show you that there wasn't a big difference in the composition of the diet. So while they were getting more, they weren't necessarily getting different carotenoids. And so we also wanted to validate our dietary intake data by looking at some physical indicators of carotenoids. And because when we ingest carotenoids, they are deposited in our tissues and go throughout our bloodstream, we can measure them in the skin and in the blood. The kind of gold standard for measuring carotenoid status is to draw blood and quantify exactly how much carotenoid we have in our system, and we use high-performance liquid chromatography, or HPLC, to do that. We can also use a less invasive method called Raman Spectroscopy, which uses a skin scanner that emits a certain wavelength of light, and when it reacts with carotenoids in the skin, it's reflected back at a different wavelength, and this machine can then measure the total carotenoid score in the skin. A big difference here is that the skin scanner will give you a total carotenoid score, whereas the HPLC can then break it further down into the individual carotenoids. So looking at our data from this, we saw we did have a significant increase in both total skin carotenoid score as well as 3 of the 5 individual carotenoids we looked at in the blood. And you'll notice again, just like for the dietary composition, we didn't have a lot of changes in the types of carotenoids we were ingesting. And it's important to notice the different types of produce that were available. For example, we didn't see a significant difference in lycopene, which is found in tomatoes. And perhaps this is because we measured in May and November and kind of missed that prime tomato harvesting portion of the summer. So we also wanted to look to see how well our skin and plasma values correlated, because measuring from the plasma or the blood can be invasive, and it would be nice to just be able to use the skin scanner. And this graph shows you that they are highly correlated, and so measuring in the skin is a valid way to estimate total carotenoid exposure. So thinking about where we're going moving forward, I'm interested in really following this carotenoid story for my master's thesis. We also have a lot of data on fatty acids and cardiometabolic profiles that we've yet to really explore. Certainly, we'd like to disseminate our results to fill gaps in the literature. And of course, we're always looking for funding because we'd like to get a larger randomized controlled trial that's more representative of the cancer survivor population with a stronger methodology. If you'd like more info, we also have our website at go.osu.edu/hope. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. One very quick comment or question.
I wanted to congratulate you on this. It is so encouraging and
It is.
truly so holistic.
It is. It's very fun. And
Is it only for Ohio, for Columbus residents, or anybody who would be
right now,
interested?
I mean, anyone who's willing to come to the garden can come harvest. We recruit from within the population that harvests at the garden. So James Care for Life, which is the survivorship outreach program at the James Cancer Hospital, actually runs the garden, and I think they have over 400 people harvesting this year. We recruit from within that population for our study. So people who want to harvest at the garden, for example, can certainly come do so. But then it's kind of transportation is the issue.
Do you have any children and young adults doing that? That would be so amazing for them to, as a much longer survivor of cancer.
It would. We're actually starting a program for healthy children this fall to kind of test our intervention in non-cancer survivors, and then hopefully we'll be able to kind of bridge that gap moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.